Hey everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. I have a very special guest here with me today. Would you like to unveil your identity to the listeners out there?
Oh, yes. Does that mean I have to speak in my real voice?
Well, if you want to speak in a character voice the entire time, you're free to do so.
Oh,
but
well,
I
I could. I can talk in any number of guy voices because about half my career is doing little boys. Yeah. But this is Mona Marshall. How you doing?
We're doing great, and I hope you're doing well as well.
I am. I'm working. I'm happy.
Well, that's always a good thing, as long as you're working right now. The economy hasn't been doing well.
Yeah, I know. But we got to have faith.
Exactly.
It'll come back.
Definitely. I mean, it's not the end. There is no end.
There is no end that we know of.
So instead, let's go to the beginning, and let's ask you a little bit about, what sparked your interest into acting.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I came out of the womb, and I think I remember doing some kind of performance from as long ago as I can remember. I know that my mother used to tell me that I sang or hummed before I could talk, and I remember, this was before you had to have seat belts for children in the back and special seats. I remember standing up in the car, and I would sing and make up little songs, and then my mom worked, and my father worked, and I had an older sister, but we weren't really close, and I grew up in the Midwest, so we had what was called a rathskeller, and which was kind of like a glorified basement, and I would go down there, and I'd put on records, and I'd sing, and I'd dance, or I'd make up stories or songs. So I guess I was always interested in acting, but oddly enough, I went off to Central Missouri State College and got a degree in English because I thought at that time I was going to be an English professor. And our first husband, he knew how much I wanted to act and perform, and I think my senior year there was some sort of play or something, and I said, oh, gee, I don't know, should I go out for this play? And he said, well, why don't you just get up and do it? So I did, and that was enough for me. I knew that I could never really teach. I really wanted to perform. So we came out here after I graduated, and he was going to be a writer, and I then started, knocking on doors for acting. But the thing I always tell on myself, is that I was a bit of an intellectual snob. I came out here at the recommendation of one of my professors who said that LACC had an outstanding theater arts program. So I came out here, waitressed, and I went to LACC, and he was absolutely right. They had these great classes in acting, but in particular, they had this wonderful class called voice production. And now, mind you, I didn't know what voiceover was. I knew what animation was because I would, watch cartoons, but I didn't really think in those terms. I was thinking of becoming a serious actress, doing the classics. And in this voice production class, we learned how to do all the different voice placements and then how to combine them. And I had this spectacular teacher, Robert C. Board, who at the end of every week would have us do a classical piece, either Shakespeare or one of the Greeks, and we would have to believably use all the aspects of these various voice placements. And I will tell you that really was the beginning of how to develop characters for me. And so I knocked on a lot of doors as an actress, never quite fit into a groove, just never quite did that. And then to earn a living after my IHOP job ended, I was teaching at a Hollywood professional school. I'm not even sure that exists anymore. And one of my kids, this was 5th grade, one of my kids was studying with the late, great Dawes Butler. And his mother went on and, oh, you got to take this class. Oh, I know you just love it. He's so terrific. And I'm thinking, voiceover? come on, I don't want to do voiceover. I'm a serious actress.
Oh.
And so, yeah, when I said intellectual snob, I meant it. So finally, just to shut her up, I took Dawes' workshop, and it was great because anybody could go. You'd put in $15, and I mean, you had 3 hours of the most incredible voice production teaching that you could ever imagine. He was wonderful. And I walked into that class, met Brian Cummings, and immediately knew I was home. And Dawes used to say, well, if you can't act in a 30-second commercial, maybe you can't really act. Because his thing was, you grab the character, and then you go with it. And also, and this I also learned from Robert C. Board, was that there are many ways to do a character, not just one. So don't get yourself painted into some little pigeonhole. Get out, explore. What they would say today, push the envelope. So it was fantastic. And then from there, there was a program called the TAPLA, Theater Arts Program of Los Angeles, under the CETA program. And they were looking for actors that would be paid by the city to go on tour throughout the schools and rec centers in Los Angeles and I think even Orange County. And Dawes wrote a piece for me, and the title of the piece and the title of the character was Majesty. And she was an ad agency executive. Think of, what's the show that's so popular, Mad, not Mad TV, but about the ad agency. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, no, I don't even have TV. Like, I'm one of those horrible people that just watches Hulu. I know
anyway,
The Office.
I guess it takes place on Madison Avenue, right, Mad?
Okay, I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember the name either.
But that kind of consciousness, where, everything is competition, and, she was, based on like an ad agency exec from the 60s, but of course she was a woman, and back then women really didn't have those kind of positions. So there was a lot of depth to the character. So I used one of the monologues that he wrote. I sang one of my original songs, and I got accepted into the program. But here was the odd thing. I came back for the second round of auditions, and there is a table of men, okay? The guy at the end has a guitar, but the guy sitting next to him says, one of the questions he asked me is, well, how do you feel about getting on your knees? And I'm thinking, hello?
Oh, whoa.
And what he meant was, did I mind actually, helping build sets and stuff like that? But it took me a moment, I got the little brain going, what? This is under the auspices of the city of Los Angeles. What is he asking me? So once I got that through my head, I said, no, I don't have a problem with that. I learned how to do that, at LACC. And then the guy with the guitar, who turned out to be Paul Hansen, brilliant director, writer, had us follow along. He'd play this little song, and we had to learn it very quickly on the spot. Anyway, long story short, I got accepted into this company called the LA Moving Van and Puppet Company. And I'm thinking, first I'm excited because, wow, it's a paid acting gig, and I get to work every day, and this is working with what? Puppets? Oh, my gosh. I had never worked a hand puppet in my life. Okay, so I'm thinking, oh, what have I gotten myself into? And at first I was very disgruntled, and as it turns out, when I look back on my life and my career, I think all these things that I never thought I would be doing or want to be doing, because I was open-minded to a certain degree, really have been the basis for an outstanding career. A career where I'm a working actor, which is all I ever wanted to be anyway. I was never interested in being a star. I wanted to work, and I love performing. So his attitude, Paul Hansen's, was it was easier to teach an actor how to work a puppet than a puppeteer how to act. So because of that, I learned the rhythm, which later helped me when I got my first real job on a series, which was Harlot, I think. Captain Harlot wherein I was doing ADR, and I didn't know what ADR was, but of course it's doing sync. But because of the rhythm in the hand from doing the puppets, and also, music background, I was able to do it the first time. And it was very natural. So I'm a quick sync person. So that's been really helpful. And back in those days, in the 80s, you did everything. It wasn't like, okay, you're an animation actor, you're a commercial actor, you do ADR, you do background, you did everything. So, and that's, the same as today. I am still able to work in all those aspects.
And that I'm sure has helped your career as well. I mean, having more than one talent.
Absolutely. And he was a very smart man, Paul Hansen, because he took a look at the crew he had. There was one of us who was a magician. There was one of us, he knew I could do voices and characters. The first time I discovered I could really do children, Brian Cummings had a class back then, and he invited me to come and said, oh, come on in and, sit with us. And the assignment that he gave was read this copy like a kid. And, I had been touring doing children's theater, so I was around children all the time, and I was into that consciousness. So I just, picked up the copy, and I was able to do it. And from then on, I created 2 characters. One of them's Mikey, and the other one is Margaret Elizabeth. And from those 2, I built a story. They were brother and sisters. They had an alcoholic aunt. They had a father who was a conductor and a mother who had been an opera singer who died. So, all my writing skills, I was able to use that. And from those 2 placements and children's consciousness, I was able to start building a whole lot of other children characters. And then at that time I was studying improv with Off the Wall and doing opera improv because I had a background in opera. And that was great because Dee Marcus had one of the assignments there was, okay, well, this time you're children. So then you begin to kinetically move like a child. So it's never just about the voice or the placement. It's really acting. You really get into where is this coming from. Once you're into that character, then you don't have to worry about how do you say a line. You can say a line in many different ways as long as you're true to where it's coming from, which is a character. So I love improv. So that's, once again, knocked on a lot of doors while I was studying with Dawes. I was also touring with the LA Moving Van and Puppet Company. And little by little, started to get jobs. And one of my first acting jobs was doing the voice replacement for Alexander in Bergman's Academy Award-winning foreign film, Fanny and Alexander. And I have to tell you, it was kind of one of those out-of-body experiences when I heard my voice, and by this time I was dating my second husband. We went to see the premiere, and he looked at me as if to say, that voice came out of you, and I felt the same way, which is a good thing. When you can hear a voice and not feel attached to it, but enjoy the character, that to me is a good job. Yeah.
I can understand that. I mean, when I go back and I listen to interviews and I think to myself, oh gosh, there's so many things that I shouldn't have done or that I should have done, those are the ones that I remember less. I try to remember less. But I try and learn from them. But the ones that I really enjoyed are the ones that come off as normal conversations, or they came off as I was having fun. So in a sense, I can actually understand where you're coming from.
Sure, you're in the moment. I mean, I think that's what makes people really good at their job, whether you're talking about interviewing or acting. If you are truly in the moment, and I hate to sound Zen-like, but at one with what you're doing, then you're not thinking about, oh, is this working? Is that working? And actually, that's something that I learned from Robert C. Board. He especially with a period piece, we could not make one movement on stage until we established what we were wearing. And not by what we were wearing, because, we'd be in our work clothes, but in our movements. And really having an understanding of the time and place. So if you're doing a period piece and you're doing, say, Elizabeth I, well, there was a whole thing with the costumes that made women walk straight. So there had to be that kind of presence. And, of course, in voiceover, you've got to have that. You have to have it, whether you're looking at an image on the screen and doing sync, or especially in original animation, where you've got to really create what's going on in your head. So I think it makes all the difference in the world to know that, rather than go after the funny voice or the joke. So.
Well, now I always hear with improv and theater that because it's so dramatic sometimes, that it actually helps a lot with animation.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, there's all kinds of animation, you know that. But every once in a while, you'll get an animation that is more serious-minded, where you're really teaching a lesson and you can have a moment. I love that. I mean, I love being silly, too, but those moments, it's sort of like what Paul Hansen used to tell us, that, you know, you can get away with a puppet doing things that are outrageous that you could never have a live person do. It's the same thing with animation. A lot of times you can have an animated character, and I'm not just talking about being crass and that kind of stuff, i.e. South Park, but you can also have moments of extreme tenderness that, you know, kids especially can accept from an animated character, but would be very embarrassing or, you know, not feel right from a live action movie. You know, so that's kind of neat.
I think so, and I have to wonder, do you find now, especially since you've had your career for so long, that there are any differences between, you know, regular original animation or dubbing, or has it all kind of, you know, you've gotten used to it so much that it's kind of blended into one?
Well, you use a lot of the same skill sets, but a couple of things. I never take any job for granted. I try and approach each job with as much heart and soul as possible, and that's just the way I am. So it doesn't matter whether it's a big, high-profile job or, you know, a PSA or a commercial. You know, I do the tag announces for Publix grocery stores you know, they're out of Florida. And, you know, even though it's a whole different thing, it's not dramatic, I'm getting price points out. But still I noticed that even in that little bit of, you know, 12 seconds, you are still getting a point across. That still has to be delivered with not too much weight, not too little weight, so it's its own challenge. So each aspect of voiceover has its own special skills, but I find them all exciting, you know. It's hard to believe, but yes, I can get excited about price points. There, the challenge, of course, is you have to say it fast. It's got to be crisp and understandable, and you're also getting across an image, an idea. So,
Well, I can understand that. I mean, everybody makes fun of me because I get excited for the voice actors who have, you know, been in really old things. Like, they all, you know, a lot of the staff or a lot of the listeners really like people who are like, oh, they were just in this new anime. And I was like, they were in this anime 10 years ago. That is amazing.
Yeah. I was doing a job. I'm trying to think which. Oh, another job that can't actually be mentioned because I signed a non-disclosure. But it was a Disney project that will be out, I think, probably Christmas. And it just surprised me. The director, it was his first time directing, and he was quite wonderful. And he had a lot of us who've been around and worked a lot. He had looked up each and every one of us on IMDb. And the first thing he said to me is, oh, you did Rainbow Bright. And I'm going, yeah, 20 years or so ago. But, you know, he grew up with that kind of stuff. Just like when I grew up, lo and behold, one of my favorite animated series was Rough and Ready. Well, Dawes did one of those voices, you know, so 20 years later, right, I'm in his class, and here's the guy that I listen to every Saturday. How awesome is that, you know? So it's kind of neat, you know. One of the things about having some longevity is that people actually that you work for have grown up with some of your voices.
Well, while me and Mona go off on a nostalgia trip, we're going to go on a quick break here on 91.8 The Fan, but don't go anywhere, because I'm not going to scare my guest. I promise. I'll try not to. Okay, I don't promise. Keep it tuned to 91.8 The Fan. Everything you want and nothing you don't.
Are you hungry for some anime? Don't snack on cheap substitutes like sake and paki. Snack on Anime Bites. Delicious bite-sized reviews of your favorite anime posted every Monday on 91.8 The Fan and a week later in China. Anime Bites. Only on 918thefan.com. Because .net is for losers.
Hey everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. I still have my guest here. Or not.
Find out if it's South Park, honey. Sorry, my agent has her own ring. So.
Oh, that might be an important call. Do we need to take that call?
No, actually, my assistant's finding out, and if I do South Park, I find out now for a session tonight. So.
Ooh, very nice.
Yeah, that's a whole different ball game in terms of don't leave town when South Park is in session. Anyway, what would you like to know, my dear?
Well, we were talking a little bit about behind the break, where you guys can't listen, about video games, and I was wondering if that has sort of a different bit of talent that you need to bring, because you have so many reaction sounds, like the and I can't do them, but you know what I mean.
I do. Actually, when I think in terms of video games, to me, it's the most dramatic acting. Because most of the time you are doing very fully thought out characters, and because there are choices involved, you really address all of that. You don't really get a chance to do that much in ADR, especially if you're doing background for a movie, because it's a very short lifespan. Okay, this is who you are in this scene. But I love video games because of that. And in video games, I get to do, it seems to me, a lot more variety. And I get to do very believable young males, which I love doing. I think it takes care of all my, when I was a kid, I was a major tomboy. I never hung out with girls. I hung out with guys.
High five.
And as I got older, I discovered that there are a lot of perks to being a woman. So it kind of, okay, I can be a woman, and yet I can be a boy. So I really like that. And I don't know. There's just something about, and not that you can't be a female hero. Of course you can. In Love Hina, I played that kind of a warrior. But there's something about being in that young male consciousness that is really kind of, for me as an actor, is really very interesting. And I really like it. And I think, oddly enough, it's given me more of an appreciation of men. But I love doing it. We were talking about Dot Hack, and that was one of the two most memorable males are the character from Dot Hack and the character from Wolf's Rain.
I mean, they had very different things about them, though they were both very dramatic. I know with Dot Hack it spanned several games, and once you got to like the third or fourth game, which is like 200 hours of gameplay for the person sitting there, they got really used to and into the characters at that point. So anything that major that happened to them was really engaging for the player.
Right. Well, and engaging for me as well. I mean, it's wonderful to be able to repeat a character and grow. That's the other thing about video games. Because it's an epic-like story, you actually grow as the character. And I love that.
And I always hear those
actor's dream, and I don't have to be male. That was the thing I love about voiceover. I am not limited. I have played little old men. The only thing I can't play is, past a certain adolescence, hire a man. But outside of that, you can't do that when you're doing on-camera acting, right?
No, I think they'll notice. I think the boobs will give it away.
Oh. And also age, you can be any age. As long as you can carry it off in your voice, who cares what age you are,
And I always hear with video games, specifically, the scripts can be enormous.
Oh, yes. we could talk about Blue Dragon sometime.
I know that had a lot of hours. I did not play that, but I know that was huge.
My gosh, a lot of hours, a lot of screaming, a lot of yelling, but he was a wonderful character. He really was. I mean, that was extremely demanding, but it was a wonderful character.
Well, did you ever have any trouble with maybe losing your voice in a video game or screaming too much in a video game?
My biggest challenge with that particular game is because I was in day after day after day. My agent finally had to say, you got to give her a break in between here, because I also do public tags. For most animation, or especially male voices, I'm not using the high end of my voice, so I can work through sinus infections, I can work through a lot. But when you are yelling and screaming constantly for 3 or 4 hours, it's very difficult to then go into only at Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. That part of the voice, which is higher, and there's nothing to mask it. When I do a character like Dot Hack or Blue Dragon, I can drink a Diet Cola, I can drink coffee with milk, doesn't matter. When I'm doing a very straight, close to the mic voice, I can't do any of that. I can have water and hot tea. That's it. Because there's nothing, it's just pure you. And with the way mics, mics have changed too. In the beginning, mics were not so sensitive. Now, every single mouth sound is picked up. That's why a good engineer is so incredibly valuable, or invaluable. I mean, and I'm fortunate. I've worked with some of the best engineers around. They're great, and they have to be, because they're doing a lot of cleanup work. Plus, they have to know how to mic you properly to begin with. So, did I actually answer your question?
Yes. Yes, you did. Now, for the listeners out there that want to stalk you, in a nice way, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there any projects that have recently come out that you would like them to know about, or anything that you're working on that you'd like them to know about?
I think I can mention that I'm in the next set of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because you all said that people know that's coming out. But there's this game I did, and I don't know its name actually, that I think is very clever. Disneyland is a big deal, and for those of us out here in California, in a way we take it for granted. They're in Anaheim, it's not that hard to get to. But there's a game that will be coming out that kind of goes through all the Disneyland sections, and I got to be a part of that, and an enthusiastic part of that, and it was just wonderful, because you have to visualize what it is that you're seeing, and then translating that to the people who are going to play the game. I just think it's a wonderful thing. First of all, I know that there are families throughout the country that save, so that they and their family can go to either Disney World or Disneyland. So to have a game where you can either kind of anticipate what you're going to see, or have that memory revisited time after time after the visit, I just think that's really neat. And, it's Walt Disney, man. It was the start of so much. So that was kind of a really neat thing. And I'm sure you can figure it out. It'll be out, I think they said it's going to be out in time for the holidays. So, anyway, those are two things. I love the Yu-Gi-Oh! Characters. Lots of fun.
I have heard of that Disney game. I actually don't know the title, ironically.
Good,
but
I don't think we're supposed to say it yet.
Yeah. I will say that I did actually force a business trip to turn into a trip to Disneyland lately, so I'm one of those people that, loves to go to Disneyland.
Once again, I think that's what is so cool about this game, that you can relive it. I mean, once again, we're in the midst of this, so we see a lot. We it's how I earn my living. But when I think of people across the country especially in this economy, who are saving for this trip. It's a special thing. It's a thing that the family's going to do together. I just think it's outstanding. It's just really trippy. So I'm glad to be a part of it.
That's cool. I hope people pick up that game when it comes out this holiday season, as long as they don't push it back or anything. You know how video games are.
Exactly.
And is there anything else that you can think of that might have come out that you want to remind the listeners about?
Oh, my goodness. This is not a game, but I'm working 2 shows that I think are going to be on public television that I'm really thrilled about. They're for younger children. One of them is called Cloud Bread, and it's very lyrical, a very fun show. That's original animation. And then there's another one that's really cute called Pom Pom, which is about a boy made out of blocks, and he can transform into different objects, and it's very engaging for children. I think I told you I have a website called mindmagicsolutions.org, and when I stopped touring, because I was doing too much voiceover work, I really missed that one-on-one relationship with children. So I started as a volunteer, as a reader in a school here, McKinley Elementary School in Burbank, and then eventually took what I had learned with my background in English and also touring, because we really had to learn to work a children's audience. One of the things you don't want to do is leave children so high with energy that they go back to their class and they can't concentrate. So I really learned about how to, focus that energy and to leave kids thoughtful without, coming out of their skulls. Anyway, I developed this program called Mind Magic, which helps children to attach imagery to what they read. And it also helps, because I've created a grammar rap, and as I said, I'll be doing this hopefully so the kids can download sections from iTunes for free, hopefully by the end of this year, the beginning of next year. But anyway, it's really wonderful because it's the same kind of stuff I use when I do voiceover. Besides working with children on articulation, which of course it helps. You wouldn't work in voiceover if you couldn't have your words distinct. But also breath control. And why that's good for kids is because that's how we communicate. So I'm really thrilled about that. And the idea that I was trying to figure out how do I go, since I can't clone myself, from one person in front of this one classroom, and I don't have the time to do more. Mind Magic is a nonprofit, and basically it's subsidized by me and my voiceover work. But I wanted to reach more children because it does act as an adjunct to California language testing and language. So the kids are not just learning for the test, but they're really beginning to love language and find that it's valuable outside of what their test scores are going to be. And I work with a wonderful teacher, Sherry Westcott, over at, as I said, McKinley Elementary School. And now hopefully people will be able to download this and it'll be helpful to kids. So.
And now I remember earlier you said that you were working on, I believe, a new website for you, but it wasn't up yet?
Yes, with my assistant who's very, much more computer savvy than I am. It's going to be monamarshall.com. It will be available and launchable hopefully within the next 2 months. On that, I'm working on an adult animation series, and hopefully you'll be able to see that by then that I created. But also there's going to be a section called Voicing Off, wherein any fans or any viewers can email Mona Marshall, and one of my many assistants, friends, relatives, you name it, will be able to answer all your questions in characters created by Mona Marshall. So that's called Voicing Off, and anyway, so that should be a lot of fun. I'm having fun doing it anyway.
Well, I know the fans will really love that. I know that as soon as that site opens up, they'll flock to it.
Good, because I mean, it's when actually it was my assistant's idea, and he said, you have fans that would be interested in stuff you're doing, and I thought, Mona Marshall is boring. However, Mona Marshall has a lot of other people living inside her head that are not. So that idea sort of came from that, and in that way, entertainment as well as information. So
well, obviously, let us know when it's launched for real, and we'll tell the listeners, and that way, they know, and then they'll go stalk it in a nice way.
I would like to take this time to apologize. I have 4 or 5 fan letters that I have not answered, and part of it was we moved my office and I could not find them, and now that I have finally found them, I haven't had the time to really address them, but in future, I will be much more conscientious because I really do appreciate how much it means having people who care about the work, who are moved by the work, and I cannot thank the fans enough.
Well, since we're nearing the end of this interview here, and I'm very sad for it because, time just flew by, I was wondering if you'd be willing to participate in a 91.8 The Fan tradition.
And what does that mean?
Basically, we ask if you'd be willing to do a radio bump for us.
Of course.
Awesome. The only trick is that we ask if you'd be willing to do the takes on air.
Sure. Why would I not?
Oh, but well, some people get really embarrassed. Like, blooper? They're going to hear me do it wrong? Oh, God.
Oh, please. Half the fun of doing stuff is doing it wrong. Don't let any of my directors hear that.
I won't. Don't worry. I'll keep it a secret. Just me and the thousands of listeners. But I was curious if you'd be willing to say the following line. Hello, my name is, you insert your name, I do this, you can insert characters, or you're a voice actress, whatever you want to put there, and you're tuned into 91.8 The Fan.
Yes.
All right. So whenever you're ready, you can try it.
Hello there. My name is Mona Marshall, and I do many strange and odd characters, some of which you have heard from the time you were very little to the time you are now. For instance, I do about half the moms on South Park. What are you talking about? Oh, I had no idea chickenpox was such a dangerous illness. And we are here today with 91, well, let me try that again. Blooper.
Take
and
two.
This is 91.8 The Fan, where you can truly be entertained.
That was gorgeous. Thank you.
You are so welcome. And you are a sweetheart. This was lots of fun.
Oh, this was so much fun. And for anybody out there that missed any of this, shame on you, but you can catch it on our website within the next few days, so keep your eyes peeled to 918thefan.com and stay tuned to our radio station. Thanks once again for this. This was awesome.
Okie dokie. Take care now. Bye-bye.